Well, hello there YouTube, Jorge again with another video. This is LevelD Boeing 767-300 and I just installed it in prepared version 3. This is the latest version available at the Fly One store that you can download. It's version 1.50 of the LevelD. I had the previous version, I believe it's 1.42a, and I recently upgraded my computer from Windows 7 to Windows 10, and I installed version 1.42a and it didn't work. Neither in FSX, it slowed down the simulator so much that I couldn't fly, and it just didn't work in prepared. Now this version supposedly works in prepared, so I'm going to do a quick flight just around the airport here. This is South America, Carrasco International Airport in Uruguay, Montevideo. I'm on runway 24 and I'm going to take off on runway 24, come back and do a landing, an ILS on runway 24. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick and dirty configuration of the autopilot for this short flight. Remember, we're taking off from Carrasco Internacional. It's an airport in Montevideo, Uruguay, South America. I'm going to take off from runway 24, turn around and come back and do an ILS, category 3 auto land, back on the same runway. So to configure these real quick, we need to turn on the auto throttle, turn on both flight directors. The flight's going to be done at 3,000 feet. So I'm going to set the altitude here at 3,000. And heading is going to be runway heading, which is 243. Excuse me, 243. And we'll leave the speed at 200. That's going to work for us. That's all we need with the MCP, the autopilot. Next, we'll configure the flaps. We'll do flaps 5, and we'll configure the auto brakes to RTO, or rejected takeoff. Flaps 5. That's a couple of clicks on the F7 key to get to flaps 5. Turn on TCAS. And we will configure the FMC. I'm going to set the reference airport. Sierra Uniform Mike Uniform, and we're going to be flying from Sumu back to the same airport, so I'm going to click again to bring the name of the airport, or the ICAO, back down to the scratch pad and enter it as a destination. Now we go to departure and arrivals page and select Sumu departures, and we're departing from runway 24. We go back to the route, click next page. We need at least one fix to complete the route, or to have a route, to have the FMC calculate other parameters for the flight. So we're going to go to a couple of ways to do these. If you know a fix, you can create a fix. If you know the name of a fix, you enter it, or you could use a SID, which will put fixes from the procedure for you. So let me go back here to departure. I was going to use Dagoose. We selected runway 24. And here are the SIDs. If I choose Dagoose 1 Mike, for example, it will put that fix there. Let's do that. I'm not going to select any transitions or anything, just the SID. I'm going to go back to the route, and now when we go to the next page, we'll see that Dagoose 1 Mike to Dagoose, that's the point, it's inserted there. That's all we need to have all the information with at least one fix to have a route. So I'm going to activate that and execute. We'll go to performance, initiation, And we can figure out how much fuel we have by going to Vehicle, Fuel and Payload. And here we need the zero fuel weight. For zero fuel weight, we will add up the empty weight, which is 197,000 pounds, plus the payload. And we'll round this up to 48,000. So 197 and 48 gives us 245. So our zero fuel weight is 245. Just as simple as that. You can use whatever means you have to figure out zero fuel weight, but quick and dirty, this is it. So we said 245. That's our zero fuel weight. And as you can see, the total fuel and the gross weight, it's all calculated by the flight management computer. Reserves for this flight, I'm just going to put 2. We're going to cruise at 3,000 feet. Cruising altitude 3,000 feet. Cost index. Set it to whatever your virtual airline recommends. This is simulation, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put 80. And then we're ready to go take off. Flaps 5. Set it to flaps 5. Center of gravity 23%. And that will give us the trim of 4.7. So we need to remember that now. Actually, we could do it right now. Right there, the trim is a white line. It's around 2 right now. So I'm gonna set it to, it tells us what it is. We need 4.7. That's 4.4, 4.5, 6, 7. Trim is at 4.7. And we verify our V speeds. V1 is 162. VR or rotation speed is 167, and V2 is 172. So our route is complete. FMC is configured, flaps configured, RTO configured. We just need to turn on some lights. Landing lights on, position lights on, collision, anti-collision lights on. Now let's turn on the wing lights. And that's it. That's a quick and dirty setup for this Boeing 763 from LevelD. Let's take a peek outside, see how it looks. That's the livery for Pluna Virtual. All right, we're ready to go. I'm not flying online. I don't even have AI traffic, so, but if you were, you would, at this point, you will get permission to take off. Let's say we were given permission to take off. We're going to move on to the runway. Apply a little bit of power. To give it takeoff power, we click on the N1, hold the brakes, and we let the engines stabilize. Right about 35–36%. We can release the brakes and the aircraft will begin to go. By the way, this Microsoft game DVR works pretty good in FSX, but it was interfering with the game with prepared. So we'll see how it goes. If not, I'll do it with the flaps.
V1, rotate.
Okay, we'll rotate to about
Positive rate of climb.
10–12 degrees.
Gear up.
Set the gear up. And after we pass 800 feet, which we just did, we can connect the autopilot. Now, by default, it's going to climb at 4,500 feet per minute. And it's going to reach the 3,000, as you can hear it right away. If I click on LNAV, we will begin going to our point in the that we programmed in the CDU, which is Dagoose. But we really want to go to the left 90 degrees from the runway heading of 243. So 90 degrees to the left would be 153. So I'm going to set that to 153. Come on now. 153, and as you can see, we're doing lateral navigation right now, and that's also shown right here. By the way, what's announced in green letters is what's currently active. So right now we're in LNAV. But I selected the heading that I want to go to, and as soon as I click select this button right here, it changes from LNAV that turns it, the light turns off right here, and then over here it's announced that we're flying to the heading select. Heading of 153. We can see that we are perpendicular to the airport. If we follow we're following this dotted magenta line to 153. I'm looking at the HSI, by the way. You can see the airport. It's perpendicular to us and the direction we're going away from 243, which is the runway heading. Now we want to turn 90 degrees again and head to the east. So if we, and as you can see,
gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have now reached our cruise altitude. We hope you enjoy your in-flight entertainment. Have a good flight with us.
By the way, also, if we look at the speed tape, we can see that flaps up, it's around 200, and we're still flying with flaps 5. I'm going to leave it because I'm not going to go any faster than 200. So let's turn 90 degrees to the east. 153, take away 90, that's 063. So we were gonna, and since we were already in heading select, as soon as I started making changes here, the airplane begins to go where the new heading, 063. And we can see the airports to our left. And if you remember that Dagoose point, that's where that solid magenta line points to. Right now we're going away from it and we don't need that point anymore. We only needed it to complete a route in the FMC. All right, okay, let's see. We're under a speed controlled by the auto throttle. The auto throttle is right here, it's on, and we can see the speed button has a light on, and the speed selected is 200, and we can see that we are doing 200. We are under the regime of altitude hold, and as you can see here where it says altitude hold, it's lit, meaning that we're under altitude hold as it is announced. And we already talked about heading select, and then CMD means we're under autopilot, and we can see the CMD autopilot engaged light, it's also on. Very well. Let's start getting ready for, we need to install the approach. We're going to do an ILS to runway 24. So let's bring up the FMC. And we go to departure and arrival, press that button, and we want to do an ILS to runway 24. That's, we can see it right here. I'm going to click on that, and then we can see the execute light came on. I'm going to execute it. And let me go to legs. And as you can see, that goose is what's next. But we need to get rid of that goose, and we have discontinuity, and we really want to go to CF24. We will click on that, and when we click on CF24, it puts it down here in the scratch pad, and we can select the left key up here where it says that goose to put CF24. Immediately you can see that the dotted white line in the HSI is the horizontal situation indicator, is pointing to that CF24. That's the next point in our route. Now, if you look at here at CF24, we need to be at 3,000 feet or above. 3,008 means 3,000 or above. We're flying at 3,000, so we are okay to fly to that point right now. But also notice how far away from the airport from that point. It's runway 24. It's 7 miles from this point and 2 more miles, so that would be about 9 miles to the airport. If you wanted to give yourself a little bit of more time, which I do in this case because I'm flying the plane, I'm talking, I'm doing other things, I will insert a fix using the VOR at Carrasco. And the VOR there is Charlie Romeo Romeo. I'm going to use the radial 063. It is the reciprocal of the runway 24 that we're going to be landing on, and the distance. So we have 9 miles from that point, that fixed CF24. I'm gonna go 50 miles out. So it is station radial Charlie Romeo Romeo radial 063, distance 15 miles, and I'm going to insert that at the top of the fixes. As you can see, already put it there, and CF24 would be the next. I will remove the discontinuity and then click execute. Now you can see the magenta line drawn to that fix I inserted, and then to the first point of the ILS. Now we're not going there yet. Why? Because we're still on the heading select. Let me close this window so you can see that, of 063. To make the plane go there, we need to get back to lateral navigation, and as soon as I click on that, you see the airplane starts turning towards that fix. Now I'm going to go back to the CDU. We need to tell it how the flaps and what speed we're going to be. The BREF, which is the landing speed, we're going to select 30 at 161. We click on that, puts it down in the scratch pad, and we select that. So now we're ready. We have the approach installed. If you notice that the triangle that represents the airplane is not right on top of that magenta line, and that's because I was talking when I first put it in the CDU, and there was time lapse between when I inserted in the CDU and I click on LNAV. In order to fix that line, it'll fly fine to that point, but if you want to see the line correctly, you click on the first fix, click on it again, and execute it, and now the line looks right. Okay, when I close that window, and start configuring our approach, we're going to set auto brakes to, oh okay, it doesn't work here, I have to go to do it here. But let me go to back here because it's easier to read the instruments. Now, as you can see, I'm getting really close to the fixed Charlie Romeo Romeo. And at this point, or let me ring the CDU and it tells us exactly how far we are. Oh, we're already on it. We're making the turn. So right now we have 5 miles to CF24 and then 2 miles to the next point, which is Ilaru, and we need to be there at 2400. So let me close this window. I'm going to change the altitude restriction here to 2400 to allow the plane to come down. We would need that if we were doing vertical nav, which I'm not. So at this point, what I'm going to do is click on the localizer. As you can see, it says LNAV. We're in LNAV, and LNAV is still on. And it's announced in green, meaning that's what's active. But see now, localizer just changed to green. It was white, meaning what's coming next. Now the localizer is active, and we can see the indicators. The localizer is moving towards the center. As soon as it gets there, and the glide slope we see right here, we're below it. If this marker for the glide slope, see how the localizer changes centering? Okay, the glide slope localizer, we're below the glide slope right now. If this marker goes below this center mark right here, we would be above the localizer. You can see it is coming down, so it's time to click the approach button, and I'm going to do that just now. And as you can see, GS, it's announcing white letters, and that's going to take over, change to GS. It did it right now from altitude hold. That's where it was before. So now we need to slow down and deploy some flaps. I'm going to go slow down to 185 and go to flaps 15.
Gear down.
I'm going to set the gear down. I can see the airport, the lights, the puppy lights.
Flaps 15.
We're flaps 15.
2500.
I'm going to slow down to 163, I think it was, the VREF. This R indicates the reference, the VREF speed, the landing speed. So I'm going to deploy another set of flaps.
Flaps 20.
And it's slow down to 170.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain speaking. We have now started our descent to our destination.
I'm going to go slow down to 164 and deploy another flaps to flaps 25, and I believe it was flaps 30.
Flaps 25.
Let me bring this up, go to init graph, and yes, flaps 30, 161, that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to deploy to flaps 30.
Flaps 30.
I go to 162. Now, as you can see, we're under glide slope and localizer, but next is flare and rollout. And this green light says land 3. That's ILS category 3 landing. It's an auto land. The plane is going to land itself. The only thing left to get back to this view is to set up the spoilers.
500. 400.
And watch it land.
300. Minimums. Minimums. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
We've touched down, brakes and reversers. We've applied reverse thrust to about 80 knots, and we'll release the reverse thrust and go to idle. At this point, we can disengage the autopilot, the auto throttle, the auto brakes, and taxi. Well, first we need to get off the runway, and we will taxi to the terminal. Now the airplane, I like it. It's a classic, and it's an awesome simulation. The game DVR, I don't know if I like it. It gave me unresponsive clicks. I'm gonna have to redo these using fraps, because I used to have no problems with fraps, although I haven't used fraps in Windows 10. So well, and there you have it. Thanks for watching.